Singers! I'm Sarah Lieb, and this is SingingTV.com. Together, you and I, we're making singing simple. I have a very special guest today who I want to tell you about for a second. His name is Fabrice DuPont, and he goes as FAB. And we're here, he's actually mixing my record, which is why I'm here. I'm at his studio in New York City. It's called Flux Studios. He's worked with a lot of people. He works as a producer and a mix engineer, and has worked with people, everyone from The Doe to Jennifer Lopez to Kirk Whalum and yours truly. So tell them a little bit about yourself, if you would. And what I'd like for Fab to talk about is what does a producer do and what does a mix engineer do in terms of how that relates to vocalists and the voice and what we do as singers.
Okay. Well, I'm a musician trapped into a producer's vest. I started as a musician, a singer, and I had a band, and I toured and I played colleges and all sorts of things. And
singing, not playing sax?
Singing,
oh.
Singing and playing sax.
Okay.
And all these things, and played lots of shows, made 2 records, and those records didn't get signed, but got a lot of attention from the labels, who then would call me, not to sign me, but to ask me to make somebody else's record sound like my record,
Okay.
which is very frustrating at the time. And then I never was a good enough singer to be able to have a career as a singer, but apparently I'm a good enough producer to have a career as a producer, so that's what I've been doing since. I've been doing it as my day job in between the 2 records, and so that's it. So I'm about 50% produce and 50% mix records. That's how my time is split.
Now you did go to music school.
I did.
Right? Okay.
I did go to music school. Actually, I went to music school to escape. It's fascinating, but I went to music school to escape making records for others.
Okay.
So I basically started producing records. I started my first record label. I was 17. It was a jazz label, straight ahead jazz label in Paris, and I just started producing, my friends, and making records, and found distribution, and we sold records, and we got awards.
Country where people actually listen to jazz.
Yeah, they sit down and listen to the music. It's pretty amazing. It's an acquired taste. Yeah. Once people start paying attention, there's a lot more pressure going on. And then I was like, all I was doing is like writing jingles for the radio or producing records for other people. And I was like, wait a second, I'm writing songs. I want to do my own songs. So I actually bailed out of Paris and I came to the States, and I went to school. I studied a little bit. Then I got a job as a composer right away. So I started writing music for a multimedia company and building my studio and writing songs, and I put my band together, and that's where it connects. So.
And that was here in New York?
That was in Boston and then New York.
Well, okay. Yeah. So you went to?
Berklee College of La Musique.
La Musique. I went there too.
Yeah.
We know that.
Everybody.
I don't know if they do. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
They probably do.
It's a good place to go.
Yeah.
So went there, met a lot of people, learned a few things, and then found a job, and decided to stay in the States instead of going back to France. And then, voila, one record led to another record, which led to another record. And then one day I got a call from Matt Pearson and said, "Hey, I wanted you to mix this Sarah Lieb record." I said, "Okay, send me something." I said, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
Cool. So, what I'd like to do in terms of singing TV is I think that a lot of people, especially beginning singers or even advanced singers who don't, who do everything from home and use either GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools to get your own sound. Another thing about Fab is that he's a phenomenal teacher. I've actually heard from people all over the world. As soon as I started telling my friends that I was working with you, my good friend from South Africa was like, "Fab? I know Fab. He's great." No. And all the interns here say how great he is as a teacher, which is wonderful. And honestly, I'm not saying that to like boost your ego, because you don't really need a bigger ego.
No, I have one of those.
But because I really have heard that. So what I'd like for him to talk about is, what does production mean from a vocal standpoint? So that's the first thing. Well,
it means many things depending on what decade you're born in. So if you're born in the pre-MIDI, pre-beat era decade, a producer for a vocalist is somebody who's gonna, make sure the sound structure is good, make sure the key is right.
Sure.
Make sure that, so that's the basic stuff.
Right, everything gets taken care of and the musicians are paid and hired.
Yeah, so
and all
like that's the whole thing. It's
sure.
like, it's basically you come in, you can concentrate on singing. That's a full service salon kind of vibe, right? So that's that. There's also communicating with the engineer to make sure that, is this the right microphone?
Mm-hmm. The engineer is the person who does the actual recording.
Yeah,
so
the technical part of it.
Right.
So when if you're at home and you have GarageBand, when you take the microphone and you know screw the cable for 30 minutes and try and get in and get some sound and get very frustrated and it's too loud, it's not loud enough, that's the engineer's job you're doing. When you're pressing play and you start singing and the chorus hits too hard and you tell yourself, maybe that's too high, you're being a producer. So if you do that at home, you do the job with 3 people, which is really hard. So the idea is, if you're going to work in an environment, is hire somebody to have you back on the musical side. That's the producer. And hire somebody to have you back on the technical side. That's the engineer.
Sure.
Sometimes they can be the same person. I used to do both all the time, and I realized that I'm a much better musician when I don't have to worry about cables. So now I work with engineers when I produce a record. And
well, so you were also saying, depending on what area you're born in, and you made a good point in that today, when music is produced electronically, which it so often is in every genre, from hip hop down to everything else, pop, folk. That a lot of the times producers don't just take care of the nuts and bolts and what's going on for the artist, but they do a lot of the actual programming.
Right. There's been a shift in the name. Like that's why it's very confusing, because now a producer is a guy who comes with the beat, yo. And the thing is, like, yeah, that's great, and that's actually a blurred thing between composer and producer.
Right.
And but then a lot of the new current producers have no idea how to communicate with a musician or to communicate with a singer, and tell them, you know, you're flat. Take one ear off your headphones or move around. This is not the right spot in the room for you. Would you like to take a break now? Knowing when to take a break, knowing when to keep going, even though it doesn't sound good right now, but you know that the next take is going to be okay.
Or even, I mean, at least for me, different people work different ways, but very often I've had to tell friends who are helping other people doing sort of production stuff, do not tell me it like that. Say, that sounds great, you know what could make it even better, do it this way. As opposed to, you're flat, do this.
Yeah.
I don't take that well.
Yeah, knowing how to communicate, knowing that, you know, there's no such thing as the truth, as we've discovered in our political system. There's all relative values and notions, right? So it's the same in the studio. So you basically, as a producer, whether or not you know how to make a track, write a song, or cut a beat up, or if you have enough people in your Rolodex to be able to put together a nice session, right now, what it comes down to, a producer is a music facilitator. So it's going to make sure that you're at your best, and that's his responsibility. And he can't make you great, but he can make sure that all the conditions are realized for you to be your best. And that's an intense job. Also, it's the person who has the vision of the whole record. Because if you're singing that song, you're not paying attention to the other 9 or 10 songs on your record, because you're in the song. And if you're not in the song, he's probably going to ask you to do it again. And once you're deep in the song, you will not notice that maybe you do that riff already in that other song.
Right.
Maybe somebody has to have you back on that. And it's so intense, and it requires so many skills and so much concentration and vision that it's rare to find people who can really work with it, because also you have to have a good match.
Right. It's interesting also to see, for me, this time working with the producer, my producer's sitting in the other room right now, literally he's working on my record, but he had the lyrics up in front of him, and at one point on one song I sang one thing and he goes, well, I think those lyrics are switched, and I was like, but I've always been singing it like that. So we did some research, and we listened to a couple different people singing it this way and that way, and I was so thankful that he was there listening to it, because I was worried about something totally different.
You're borrowing another set of ears.
Right.
And since it's actually a work relationship, since you're hiring that person, you're borrowing the ears but not the ego. I mean, that's the best case scenario, meaning that that person is there to help you get there.
Right,
He's
to
not
make
there,
you look good.
Exactly, and he's not there to impose his vision on you. He's there to provide advice. Now, if you have the initial discussion with somebody, you make a record, and say, I'm making a record, what do you think? Then you open the door for a real collaboration where the producer can tell you, you know what, this is kind of cheesy, I wouldn't do that, consider this has been done 100,000 times, do you want to be 100,001? You know, that's the discussion. But ultimately, the producer is a facilitator. That's really what I always say. I say, that's the guy that's going to help you have a good time in the studio, and it's going to translate. When people put the CD in their living room, press play, its responsibility is to make sure that when they press play, people feel like you're there with them, and that's difficult. It's a hard job.
It sure is. Yeah. Thank goodness We have such great producers here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's it for now for our producing. We'll do another session about mixing. Is that cool?
Fair enough.
This is Fabrice DuPont. You can check him out at Flux Studios, and also your website is fabulousfab.com, correct?
Indeed it is.
You have other businesses too, and the website that's going to be up soon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the launch date for that? We're not sure yet. March,
Yeah,
we're hoping?
it's no later than very soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And that website's going to be?
Puremix.net.
Puremix.net. So you can check out Fab there, and here at Flux Studios in the East Village in New York City. Thanks so much. This is Singing TV. I'm Sarah Lieb, and together you and I, we're making singing simple.